called LOL in Church. In 1967, when I was 16 years old, the pastor decided that he needed to take a new approach in doing sermons. Apparently, he would give a sermon, and then when you would go to greet him at the door afterwards, everyone would say, "Nice sermon," except there's one problem, that some little lady said, "Nice sermon," and he had not even preached that Sunday. I think some intern did or something like that. So he decided that he was going to take a different approach, a new approach of having a skit done before the sermons. So over the next several years. So he decided that our family would be first, unknown to us. So he comes over to our house to inform us that we're going to be on next Sunday with a skit, and he wants us writing the dialogue and so forth, and that the theme is going to be death. Now the problem with that is that our family doesn't know anything about death, and my mom is very insensitive about these type of things. So normally when people would tell her that somebody died, her reaction would be, "Well, that's life. Now, next week I'm going on vacation. Would you get in the newspaper for me, please?" And that's her response to that kind of thing. So the pastor was asking us, okay, now what the skit is supposed to be about is that you have just heard that somebody has died, and how would you react? So the pastor asked me, what do I think of death? And at 16, I'm like, I haven't given it any thought at all. And I don't think about it at all. And he goes, "Yes, now that's a perfect line for the script. Let's get that in there." So he was trying to work up a script with my mom. A normal reaction of upon hearing of somebody's death, kind of like the steps you go through, is what this skit was supposed to be about. Anyway, so my mom works on the dialogue. She loves this whole idea of being on stage. The rest of us were very stressed about this. So I would say by Wednesday night she had a dialogue worked up. And luckily I didn't have many lines. My brother was assigned to read scripture, and my dad had the bulk of the lines, and they were bad. I mean, the worst lines ever. Paragraphs basically. And then my mom only had a few lines. Like that. Now my dad in rehearsal knew this thing cold. He would be saying, his lines were terrible. There was something like, 15 years ago in Sunday school, I remember this scripture, and then he would have my brother is supposed to read it. And so he'd be joking around during rehearsal and, things like this. So that by Sunday morning, the rest of us needed our lines, but my dad pretty much had this memorized, is what it looked like from our rehearsal. So when we get to the church, it's like this, where we had a table in front of the church. This is the congregation back here, and we are facing the congregation up here. The congregation's back there. I'm sitting here, my brother is sitting here, my dad is sitting here, and my mother is sitting over here. And so what happened the first service is we had to do it 3 services. So at the 8 o'clock service, we're all very nervous, which would be understandable. Now here's my father, who had the lines down perfectly at home, gets up and sits down, like this. He's just, like this. And then pretty soon he gets out this piece of paper out of his pocket, of the script, and he's like this. And then he has to get his glasses, which we didn't know he wore glasses, and he's like this. And so then he is reading now. 15 years ago, I remember in Sunday school, this type of thing. Ellen, would you read us some scripture from John 3, like that. So my brother, so he gets, into the book of John or whatever, and so my brother, is reading like this, anyway, so he would be reading like, now a man named Lazarus was sick and so forth, like that. So then my lines were, well, first of all, my mother was sitting over there, and so she would say to me, because she was always smiling, because that's what Christians do. You know, they're never looking sad. So she goes, "Now, Janice, Aunt Agnes has just died. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?" And I said, "Well, I haven't really thought about that." And so that was our lines there, and that was basically, you know, the skit. So after that, we come up for the second service, and, you know, the 9:30 service. We're supposed to do this again. Now, we all are back here. My dad, again, is at the table here doing the exact same thing he did the first service. You'd think he would, you know, this, you know, "Ellen, would you read from Luke?" You know. And so then my brother, at this point, you know, starting to get kind of, you know, funny to us. So my brother would be like this, trying to read John 3:16. He'd be like this. "For God so loved," you know, so you could tell that he was trying to keep from laughing. So it got so bad that after the second service, my brother and I decided that we would not look at each other at all on the third service, because, or else we're going to burst out laughing. It was getting that bad. So on the third service, you know, we all come up here again. Now you would think my dad on the third service would be a lot more relaxed, but he was not at all. He was getting worse. So when he sat down to get his glasses, this time he was like this. "Ooh, ooh, 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 Ellen, would you," and I remember in Sunday school 15 years ago, this scripture about Lazarus, come out, Ellen, would you read Luke 11, John 11. So my brother, by this point, has the Bible while my father's doing that like this, and the book is going like this. And there's nothing. I mean, he's not reading. "Ellen, I told you to read," you know, like that. And so my brother is not reading. He's like this. And then he goes, "Now, Lazarus was from Bethany in the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So the Lord," you know, somehow, I don't know how, my brother got through that. Now, while my brother is reading, because my lines are supposed to be next, I had to bring up there some, because I'm laughing this hard, I had to bring up Kleenex like this, and I had to laugh into the Kleenex like this. Because I could not contain my laughter. I had my back to the church, to the congregation. I was like, so when my mother says to me, "Janice, Aunt Agnes has just died. What do you think of this? What do you feel about that?" I was like, oh, I'm like this. I really haven't thought about that. So it looked like I was according to these people out here afterwards, it looked like I was overcome with emotion when I could not stop laughing is what I was doing, like this. So also on the second service is what I wanted to mention, is the pastor was giving the sermon, and I had to sit through the sermon twice. So at the second service, he's up here preaching. I'm in the first row over here, and luckily my parents were not sitting with me. And you know, I'm thinking about this whole thing. I forgot where I was, and all of a sudden, in a quiet church, you know, on death, the sermon, you hear this. So the pastor immediately stops his sermon and he goes like this. Are you with us? And of course, I didn't say anything, you know, to that. So, and that was just after the second service. Now, after the third service, we somehow got through this, my brother and I was amazed that the people at the church did not notice any laughter at all. Now, the high-class neighbors that live next door to us also attend this church. They never usually attend, but naturally they decided to come this Sunday, and they usually attend the 8 o'clock, but they were there naturally at the 11 o'clock, which was the most difficult one to get through. And so the high-class neighbor says to me, oh, that skit was marvelous. Now, this skit could have been ruined if there had been any laughter. You know, there's a good job on that. You know, we enjoyed. I think you got the point across. Edward, you please get the car. Edward, get the car around, please.